Hello, everybody. It's good to be back. It's been 3 weeks out since we got together with my group of guys. I've missed a lot. A lot of things have been going on with me at the DavidGModelCitizen.com podcast, and collateral damage has been created on many fronts here with me and what I've been doing in advocacy for a long time. We're going to touch on that, guys. But before that, let me just tell you with full disclosure, I missed you guys. Good to be back. Paul over in Australia, you're still funny looking, but we love you even more that you're 3 weeks older. Kevin Crowley, don't know what you're doing, if your hair's growing back or not. You got all those curls cut off.
Finally.
And yeah. Steve, you're busy man, and that's all good news. So let's get started with an update as to where we are in the vaping community. I've been watching it very closely because, as I said, I've had 3 weeks of discussions and projects development that I'm working on in Los Angeles. Coming back, I've got some good news that we're going to probably be able to get our projects, guys, started within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So we're going to have to sit down and we're going to be here. Here's what we're going to do, basically, just to put the teaser out there. The documentary I'm going to do, it's a mini documentary. It's going to probably be a series of 3. That's what we've pretty much decided on. And that is 3 documentaries, not only about me and my journey with RJ Reynolds and then the anti-tobacco movement and then the vaping community. They're all symbiotic. They all come together. But how did we get this far? What got us to this point, and what's got us so screwed up that we are self-imploding as an industry here? And then there's going to be, obviously, with all the talk about Juul. Kevin, I know you've been listening and reading about the Juul, epidemic that we have. And Paul, I don't know. I know you read about it over in Australia, but I don't know if you know the seriousness of the pressure that's put on our organizations and our manufacturers to cease and desist getting teens to vape Juul, which is all bullshit anyway. So we're going to touch on that again tonight because it's in the news every day. But as far as we're concerned, guys, we're going to be doing a series of mini documentaries. Some will be able to be downloaded in schools for teachers to use in classrooms. We're going to have study guides. We're going to have the ebook, which can be linked and downloaded that teachers and parents can use about vaping and debunking all the myths. So I got couple good writers are going to work with you, Kevin. They're going to be a part of what you're doing on a daily basis, and the funding will be there because it's going to be traveling and it's going to be a lot of fun to do. But we only have a few short months to do it in. So I'm game. I'm ready to go. Steve, as production guy, you're going to have to make sure that you qualify everybody that we bring in to get the best possible footage we can to make this a quality project. So of course, that's all I'm going to say about it tonight, guys. I mean, I'm not going to go into detail because we don't have all the finalization, but it's all looking good finally after 2.5 years. So now it's time to really hone in on this podcast and get the education out there and get an audience and a following, despite the nonsense that happened this week. So, Kevin, tell me a little bit about what happened to you in the last couple of weeks with vaping news, other than I know there was a couple shows on major network television. I was traveling, so I didn't get to see them.
CBS did Clearing the Air on Cigarettes. Briefly had Gottlieb on there, had quite a few people, Tennessee Smoke-Free Association. I can't think of the guy's name momentarily, but some nice, Steve Nair.
Steve Nair, Steve and Brandy.
Quite a few good points that hopefully somebody my age and older is looking at it and going, wait a minute. So it was a little different from all the propaganda that's been going on forever, surprisingly from CBS. I was really happy to see that. It was
And what was your take on it? Do you think did it get a good thumbs up from people on social media?
Yeah, it was anybody watched it? Through the vaping community, it was spread pretty heavily. It's not only the familiar faces that were in it that were not blowing clouds and the crazy things that we can see sometimes, which I love. I just don't participate in. It was actually a almost completely balanced report. It was truthful, and it was so rare to see that I was shocked that when I watched it 4 times. So yeah, Steve and I think his wife was in there as well. So yeah.
Brandy.
Yeah.
Steve and
pretty
Brandy
good.
there.
Pretty good.
Mountain Oak, right?
Pretty good show.
Good. Well, it's about time we got some good. I hope we didn't have to pay for it, because right now, as you know, paid press releases are the up and coming thing with journalisms and major newspapers. And so I just did a story for the new CBD magazine that's coming out from Vaping Magazine. That's coming out, I guess, in December. And they did a story on me regarding the CBD thing, because, of course, I always considered CBD to be a tobacco harm reduction product. And a lot of people might disagree on that, but I don't care, because it's my show. and I can, as long as I can back it up, which brings us to, the things that are happening globally. We saw what happened in the World Health Organization at the COP8 conference. Same old. Aaron Biebert went over there to do some filming. That's the same one that stopped me from going to India at the COP7.
Because your picture
back in
was
November
ugly.
2 years ago. And then they had...
Because your picture was ugly.
What's that? My picture wasn't ugly. Screw you. It wasn't ugly. It was blurry. It was blurry. It wasn't ugly. Now you're making up fake news. That's how rumors get started. Rumors get started. Yeah. Well, the blurry factor was what stopped me from going, but basically we know why. But anyway, they had the conference in Geneva a couple of weeks ago, and anybody who was anybody probably went to it, at least to even go over and see it, which was, I know Charlie Chauncey Gardner went from the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World, and Derek Yack went. And Aaron was there filming, as he does, because that's what he does. He's good at it. And the media, again, was not invited in to watch and to see the lack of transparency, and they had to report on innuendo and rumors. And that's how shit happens. People, in this industry, I've never seen anything like it, really, when it comes to public health. I mean, why call it public health if the public's not going to be involved and the public can't be heard? The media doesn't even get in there to report on it, even if they are going to be screwed up media. And even if the media doesn't do their job properly, because everything is cut and paste and everything is now, unverifiable because he said, she said. And that's why I took the last 3 weeks off, guys. I did tell you, because I was so disgusted with what happened here in the United States. Paul, you were spared from the embarrassment of what we went through with the Supreme Court hearing of Justice Brett Kavanaugh and the 2 weeks of hell that everybody, not just him and his family, but everybody in this country had to witness. And it was such an embarrassment, and it was such a shame, because the same people that I've hated the same people that I have not cared for.
Politically correct.
See how cautious I am now? Well, okay, screw it. The people I hated, the same Democrats that have been, coming after the vaping community over the last 6 years, 5 years, with the exception of Spartacus, who just basically came on in the last 3 years, which is, you got those women, Gillibrand, and you got, of course, Feinstein, and that other woman, Cory Booker, the one with no hair, the bald woman. I call him the bald woman. Because he's just like a little girl. And not to mention the lying, Dick Blumenthal, who said, if you lie about one thing, you lie about everything. And he's the same asshole that claimed that he went to Vietnam and he never set foot in Vietnam. So, I just been so upset with the way this country has gone that I didn't even want to talk about vaping, because it was such a tragedy that what our country faced. And what was your take on it, Kevin? And I mean, what was your, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm curious, because we haven't talked about it.
It really is. If you're going hugely political. If you're going to hire somebody to go to the Supreme Court, how long does it take to hire I mean, if he's doing a job interview, they already should have had everything ready to go.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not being political now. I'm not looking because I don't want to talk about it. I'm disgusted by the whole thing, but I'm just curious, because it does apply to what we're doing. These same people the same people that we had to watch. Steve, I'm not even going to ask you because I don't know. You were probably working. You probably heard little snippets. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it.
Well,
but
in true millennial fashion, you would be unsurprised to hear that I lean a little bit further away from where you normally do, but we agree on enough that it's not a problem.
Well, I would love to have people disagree with me and show me where I'm wrong, and that's where I'm at right now. This whole vaping thing, I would love. I flew out to Los Angeles for this project that I'm working on for us guys, and I'm on a plane, and I swear to God, this all happened. I'll give you their names at the end. I got on the plane in Philadelphia. I was flying to LA nonstop, and I get in the seat, and I always hate to fly because I get cramps in my legs, and I always ask for an aisle seat, and sometimes I get stuck in the middle no matter what, and I'm never stuck between two little Asian women, petite, delicate flowers. I'm always stuck between two big ass men with big shoulders and big asses, and it's very uncomfortable for a 6-hour flight. But this time, luckily, I got on the plane, group 6, and I had my aisle seat. I sat down between this nice couple. I was next to this nice couple, and I said, "Hi, roomies, how are you?" And I could tell that she was a smoker because, first of all, I could smell her, and I say that lovingly because you can certainly tell when somebody's a smoker if they've had 3 or 4 cigarettes before they get into the terminal because they know they're not going to have one for 6 hours. So she kind of like reeked of tobacco. And then, of course, the question is, "Hi, how are you? My name's this, and what do you do?" And then that starts the whole thing. As soon as somebody says to me, "Guys, what do you do for a living?"
How long you got?
We got 6 hours, so we may be able to get most of it in. And I swear to God, I didn't stop talking for the entire 6 hours. And let me I bring it up because I said to the lady who had the window seat, and we were talking to Bud, the guy in the middle. He was the husband. We talked about grandkids and where they were going, and they were going to a conference and on financial planning and things like that. And so I said sometime I used to, do ads for commercials, and I used to be an actor. And, what'd you do? I was the Winston guy. Oh, yeah. What's that? And then it started, and from there it got to the vaping, and the woman's first thing out of her mouth, I swear to you, we're not in the plane 10 minutes. I don't even think we took off yet. We were probably just sitting there waiting to get clearance to go. And in that very short period of time, she goes, "That vaping, that's worse than smoking." And that just wrong answer. Wrong answer. So I had to school her very quickly. And by the time we got off the plane, she had taken my Nautilus AIO. I gave her 2 bottles of my David G e-liquid, and her husband took a bottle of my CBD coconut flavor. Okay. Because if you have a chance to educate people with honesty, and they look at you in the eye, and you can demyth and debunk all the BS that's just a soundbite that they hear day after day and week after week and month after month. That's what really encouraged me to say, you know what? I'm pissed off. I'm angry. I'm flying all over for what? For the thankless job that we're doing. And then I have to hear this woman say, first thing out of her mouth, "That's worse than smoking." That's what I heard. So I think it rebuilt my faith in the fact that I'm doing the right thing, hopefully for the right reason. And I went out to California, and by the time we were done, she hugged me. We've been on the phone twice since they landed back into they live near me, near Philadelphia. So, and then she went on to tell me that she's now doing well and she likes it, and she really has to quit. She quit for 12 years. Quit smoking. And then all of a sudden the pressure and stress of, kids and I guess whatever, she started back up, and she just had this knowledge in her head that vaping was worse than smoking. So she wasn't even going to try it. And that made me feel really good about the fact that, we have a chance now, because she's only one lady. And he was looking at me winking like, thank God, because he even said, because he hates her smoking.
Whoa, don't throw him under the bus. Give it a chance. She gonna come listen to this. Now you ruined it.
Well, he said, he was winking at me because he's been wanting her to quit for so long because of grandkids. And so she's at that stage now where every demographic that I'm going after, which is the smoker, not the Cloud Chasers Incorporated, not the Vaping Legion. I love all these. They're great. Let them do their job, but they've got to let us do our job. Kevin, Steve, and Paul, and what we're doing hopefully is going to have its benefits down the road on the David G Model Citizen podcast, because I'm not going to give up, even though I get discouraged and depressed. So that brings us to what's happening in the news with the FDA. I'm just going to tell you, and you correct me if I'm wrong,
Yep.
Kevin. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Have you seen the strategy timeline that Juul has to come up with to give to the FDA on what they're going to do to help the scourge of the Juul epidemic
I knew
in high
it was
school?
60
Have
days.
you seen anything on
I
that?
did not see anything new on it, though. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, basically what happened is, as of yesterday, Juul came out and said that they're willing to put the $36 or $38 million into a youth program that they will now start doing for the schools, and they want to make that as a strategy to give to the FDA to show that what they are doing is vital and important. And that's after all the 3 weeks that we heard that they were raided. You heard that
Yeah.
they were raided in San
Yeah.
Francisco?
Yeah.
Did you hear that they were raided? And in the picture they had cops in full SWAT gear, with the shields and all. And it would never happen that way. It was never that way. And it wasn't seizing papers. It was an unscheduled FDA inspection that they're entitled to do. They basically had been asked and given the paperwork, and they weren't seized. They were copied. Everything they took was photocopied, and they walked out graciously, and they shook hands. And Kevin Burns there said that this was not a raid, but that's the way the media portrays it. So that's all you see is that they got raided because they're evil people. And as much as I'm not a fan of Juul right now because of the fact that I think they're playing both ends against the middle here, and that's just me. I have offered to try to help their image based on the fact that I spent 18 years in the schools trying to get kids to not smoke. I certainly could do the same thing if asked to help kids understand the vaping industry and why some people feel that they are the target and the gateway for new nicotine addiction, which can't be further from the truth, because I've done even more homework,
Yes.
guys.
Yes.
Aren't you glad I did my homework? All right, let me tell you about the homework that I have now. Do you know that right now, if you take, and this has all been, I finalized everything today. We have, and I'm just going to end this part here. We have 328 million American citizens. Steve, would you agree with that? You liberal? I mean, sorry.
What does it have to do with my counting skills?
Well, you sway.
I'm kidding. We have
It sounds about right.
We have 328 million citizens according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Okay, 328. I don't know how many Paul has in his country over there in Australia. Paul, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. We've only got about 26 million.
Okay, 26 million. Okay, we're at
I think we
300.
can take you.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
can
that's
take
The
it,
kangaroos are on their side. I'm out.
Oh,
They'll fuck you
Bugger.
up.
We have 328 million people in this country, and right now everything that I've read, and I did check it with Snopes, and I did check it for facts, that out of 13% of the 328 million are teens. Okay, 12 to 18. That's what it says. Now 13, I don't know why they say teens and they use 12-year-olds, maybe because by the time they get the paperwork, then they're going to be 13. But 13 to 18-year-old kids there are 13% of the 328 million, which means that there's 42 million teens. And right up there, they are the same amount of people who are still, as adults, smoking cigarettes, 40 to 42 million in that area. That's what the numbers they say. So right now, they've got a potential of 84 million people. Well, of course, we know that not all of the 42 million teens 12 to 18 are going to smoke. But we do know, according to all of the new national youth surveys, that it's around 16%. Okay, that's who smoked in the last 30 days. Forget the vaping. This is just smoking combustible tobacco. Okay. Now, if you've got that, you got roughly, if you had 10%, and that's 42 million teens, that would be 4.2 million kids are smoking combustible tobacco. If it was 15%, it would be 6.3 or 6.4. That's always what I said. We have about 6 to 7 million teens who are smoking combustible tobacco every day of their middle and high school days, but yet we're concentrating on the 2.1 million kids who have admitted to vaping in the last 30 days. Now, you talk, where's the epidemic? Where is the epidemic if they have just totally dismissed those 6 or 7 million teens who are already hooked on tobacco, and we're doing virtually nothing because we're spending all of our time talking about vaping? So, ergo, I'm now getting even more factual on the information that I want to present to you guys, because I'm preaching to the choir with you, Kevin. I'm preaching to the choir with you, Paul. I'm preaching to you, Steve, because you know that this is where we're going with this. So now the point is, what the hell do we do with this information if everybody who knows this to be true and everything has been verified, vetted, and talked about by us, but not by the general population? What are we going to do to bring this information out to say, hey, what about these poor 6 to 7 million kids who you didn't do anything with and now that are hooked because you just have accepted the Sinar Amendment facts that, what is it, Kevin? 20% is an acceptable failure rate? 20%. So those 20% of the kids, which could go up to about 7.5 or 8 million if you look at the numbers of 42 million with 10% smoking cigarettes, combustibles. All right. We're looking at 4.2 and it's more like 15. So it's 6.3, almost 7 million. So these kids are forgotten. And that's what we're going to capitalize on with the ebook. We're going to capitalize on the old days and the basics of that is, why are these kids forgotten? Well, because we know why, but we're just not talking about it enough. And I know that Smoke Free Radio is not talking about it a lot. I know that my good friends, Mike Peterson is trying, and I know Demetrius is trying, and I know all the other people, Patrick Reif, who's got his book and radio, his magazine and radio. I think what's happening now, and this is what I'm going to touch on tonight, and you correct me if I'm wrong, with the dates that now have been forced upon the manufacturers to come up with ways to stop this scourge and this epidemic. We're about 30 days into it, and I don't know what the strategies are. But Juul has come up with something as of yesterday that they said they're ready to present to the FDA that's going to show their commitment to eliminating, vaping with Juul in their school. But what about Fix? What about Miley? What about all the other 21 letters that went out, including, to Imperial Tobacco, Japanese Tobacco with Logic, Views with RJ Reynolds, and Altria with Mark 10. And now, of course, with where's Juul going to go? We say it every time we're on the podcast. If they get the Juul buyout, through British American Tobacco or Philip Morris, we're not sure where it's going to go yet. I'm banking on British American Tobacco for $12.5 to $13 billion. Then they're going to have 91 or 92% of the e-cigarette market. So these are things that nobody's really talking about because everybody's listening to the stats of, all the requests for proposals that are going out from the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World, which I don't have a problem with. I really don't have a problem with the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World. And I guess I don't have a problem with RJ Reynolds, putting a lot of money into programs like happened out in California, which we know they put $12 or $13 million into the California campaign. And that was to help ban the ban and to, the opponents of the ban, which of course were many people who were not only in the vaping community, but also the cigarette community too, because RJ Reynolds doesn't want menthol banned, So they put $12 to $13 million into this campaign that was started for the 11 months that it was run out in California by Not Blowing Smoke and Let's Get Real San Francisco and hashtag the other things, which were Say No to Proposition E. And of course, we know Stefan Didak, who is the founder of NBS, which is Not Blowing Smoke. He's all up in arms now because I said he took $13 million from RJ Reynolds. Well, I didn't say he took it and used it for his own benefit to buy hair plugs or anything for his head. What I did say was that money became available to help fight a flavor ban, which really was important. And my only comment was I was always suspicious of big tobacco putting money into anything that has to do with vaping because I think it becomes a conflict of interest of which some people agree and some people disagree. So that's kind of like where we're at now in this conversation, guys, because we haven't talked since I got called a liar on Monday morning. I woke up to it. Did you see it, Kevin?
I heard the clip, and I think you were more alluding to the fact that they were contributing to the cause, not the NBS specifically, but
well, of course, because MBS was in charge, MBS, and this was something that, and I did my homework. This is a whole year of me watching what was going on and everything that I read, and this is important for you guys to understand too, because I don't want you to think that you were working with a liar here. But everything I knew about the Let's Be Real San Francisco Coalition of consumers and the retailers and the advocates for free choice, that was all a part of the whole process, because Not Blowing Smoke also has many, many other auspices. They had there's I think there was a campaign where there's a lot that California's not talking to you about. Then they had the No More Casualty part. And then they had the adultslikeFlavors.org, the vaping and voting guideline, and the FDA regs information. They did a lot of good stuff, and I never questioned their ability to do good work. What I questioned was, and maybe that's where the implication came in, that I was saying that they were taking the money for their own personal use. I never said that. I never implied that. I said the same thing about the Philip Morris contribution for $1 billion to the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World. And I qualified that with the fact that, I had a knee-jerk reaction to that in the beginning because I thought it was a tremendous conflict of interest. But then I found out that Derek Yock, who's executive director of the foundation, would never, ever, ever let Philip Morris dictate and run him and tell him how to spend that money. So it was basically the same thing. But what my concern was, that my hatred for big tobacco is so grand that I have a knee-jerk reaction to anything where the tobacco company gets involved, even if you can explain it to me. But we never got that explanation, because the $12 or $13 million that was spent to try to fight this ban, Proposition E, it failed. And then he was all over the case with people out in Montana, which was Deanna and Ron Marshall, who were fighting the same kind of bans and tax legislations, and they wouldn't take tobacco money. And that became the point of contention. Should we take tobacco money when we're fighting something for the saving vaping, or should we not be tobacco at all by not taking any money so we can say we are not big tobacco? So that's where I was hoping the conversation and the narrative would go. And so maybe it got out of hand where people reheard it and thought that I was just, implying that, NBS was, taking money. No, they were using the money for trying to save a ban or, ban a ban, but it didn't work.
It was
so
a
that was my point,
hand
and that's
kind
been
of
my
thing,
point.
not necessarily that Not Blowing Smoke was taking the money. They were working.
Well, they were taking the money to use it for whatever they needed in media and the newspapers to, establish coalitions to go do the protests at the state capitol building and things like that. That's where the money went. They had a total expenditure, Kevin and Steve and Paul. The total expenditure that they had was $11,591,231. Those were the contributions, but the expenditures for the expenses for the Say No to Proposition E and Let's Get Real San Francisco were almost $11 million. And that was expenditure. That money came from RJ Reynolds. And then what was told me, because I got called by the reporter, her name was Olga Rodriguez or something, after the ban failed. And as of June 5th, the flavor ban was put into effect by the voters. All right. And prior to that, there was an announcement by Stefan, and it said, let me read it. It says, we got the referendum signatures delivered, all 34,000 of them we needed 19,405. And now the 11-month process begins of building up and executing the campaign as told by Stefan Didak of Not Blowing Smoke. And then it went on to say that the renowned harm reduction advocate and founder of Not Blowing Smoke, Stefan Didak, is playing the main role in this campaign. He says, quote, we got the referendum signatures, all 34,000 of them, and now the 11-month process begins of building and executing the campaign. Now, if that's, and he's told people he took RJ Reynolds' money, because when asked, why did you take RJ Reynolds' money, by lots of people who have contacted me since Monday, he said, well, they got the money and we don't. So, I mean, so if he wants to get pissy about that, and all I'm saying is that, we should question where the tobacco monies are coming from until we get answers. And that's just, honestly, it's my opinion. And somebody can tell me to go shit in my hat and pull it over my head, that I shouldn't be involved. Well, I am involved because of the hatred and the personal bias I have toward big tobacco. So you guys follow me? You understand where I'm coming from?
Yes.
Make sense? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yep, perfectly.
I mean, it's only because, well, it only makes sense to me because, this has been a year for me. And you got to remember, this is the David G podcast because of what I went through, and the big tobacco companies, have not been really kind to me, even though I quit smoking on my own publicly without a gun to my head, I did it on my own. And then the shit hit the fan. And then I became the voice and the face for Von Earl, thinking that I was going to be a part of this wonderful, vaping transition to get smokers to quit eventually when they're ready. And then 5 months later, they turn around and sell to Imperial Tobacco. And then I saw what happens with, people now who are going into Australia that were here before. We're not going to mention names tonight because it's too soon, but we got some major players in the United States that have moved into Australia, and we knew it was coming, but we just didn't know to what extent. And Paul and I are working pretty hard on putting the I's together, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and he's connecting the dots, because it's really not a good situation. It's not going to be pretty because of the kind of people the tobacco industries generally rise to the occasion to become. So with that being said, yes, this podcast is important to where we can we don't want to be the moral conscience of the smokers in the vape. I don't want that responsibility. I just want to know that when I know something and it proves to be truthful, and then maybe if you guys can keep me calmed down to where we say it in a different way. I don't want to play this pussyfoot game like they've been playing, with our organizations now, because that's why we don't have enough wins on the column. I talked to Mark Anton today, and he's the executive director of Savada, and he's got his own comments and his own thoughts, and he can't say some things because of his career that's, he has facing him every day. I'm at the end of that for me. All I know is I want to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but. And when somebody calls me a liar, I'm going to fight. And you talk about poking a fucking bear. Okay. You don't want to poke this bear right now, because at this stage of my life, with the facts that I have and the screenshots that I have and the proof that I have, I don't know what he says, what he thinks he has on me by telling me that I've been lying my whole career. I mean, I'd like to know. I mean, I've been pretty transparent with my leaving the crumbs of where I came from and what I've done. And, so when you start getting personal, it just took me right back to the kind of attack that they put on Brett Kavanaugh. If you're going to say something, prove it. I have the proof of what I'm talking about. I have the documents. I have his own statements. I have his own screenshots of conversations that he's had, and, the bullying that he's done for people and people who don't like him and have been blocked by him because they, that if he wants to take it to the streets, we'll take it to the streets. But I hopefully, won't hear from him on this, because I would just like it to go away, only because my point is made. I'm going to talk about it to clear my name, because I'm not going to put my head down on the pillow and let anybody think for any reason that what he says has any truth to it, because I didn't stand up for myself. And I felt like tonight would be a good night to do this podcast, to get it on the air this weekend. I got 4 or 5 different media events coming on this weekend, because, I've always said, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, I've always said that controversy isn't a bad thing. And it really isn't, as long as there's a winner and there's a loser. And I don't want Stefan to be a loser. I just don't know why he's attacking me. And somebody said, well, he just attacks everybody, get in line. No, I'm not going to get in line to patronize him because he's not feeling good about himself, or not blowing smoke is disbanding. And those are his words. They're disbanding as of August 10th, 11 o'clock at night, he told several people. And here we are 2 months later, and now he's trying to look at me. And if you read his response to Vape Radio guys, it's going to be very hard for him to get donations now. Well, he was disbanding in August. What's he need donations for? So these are the things that I want you guys to know, and I want listeners who do listen to me know that this is not going to be left unaddressed. It's not going to be something that I will allow to happen in my personal life, because it is personal. And all I have, guys, is my reputation. All I have is my history and my personal passion that I have for doing the right thing. So that was the reason for the podcast tonight, not to disparage anybody, not to out anybody, but I'm not going to stand for it. And you want to fight, take it to the street, you better come at me with something more than just innuendo. Give me some proof and I'll back it up, or I'll criticize it, or I'll admit to it. I mean, yeah. And we talked about that, people could say, well, you lied. Well, I've lied about a lot of things, because what I've used as my facts that I use, just like, for an example, I used to go around saying that 430,000 Americans die every year from smoking. Well, the tobacco company said, nah, we think it's only 393,000, so they're always trying to find ways to discredit anything with just words. So it's basically semantics, and that's basically where I think, Stefan may have gotten off on the wrong track because he was accused of taking RJ Reynolds money by many people before me, many, many, many people. And his answer was always the same. Well, RJ Reynolds has the money to fight this. We don't. So we're going to use it. So that was basically the stance I was taking. If the implication was, and if I said it in a way that may have been misconstrued, well, certainly I'll apologize for that. And I shouldn't have done it. But the way I've tried to explain it in hindsight is that that's always what I meant. And I never said otherwise. And I think we've talked about it on our podcast several times that took it out. Well, if he did. But even then, his comment was that I should have called him. Well, what would I call him for? You took the money because you were using it for your hand-in-hand symbiotics, and that was to try to ban the ban of Proposition E in San Francisco in May and June. You had an 11-month campaign that you were running with all of your other sub-agencies because you were doing good at it. I mean, you had a good following. You were doing good work. No more casualties. You're trying to do the demything of the Truth Initiative.
I'll give you 2 points, Dave, and it's conversation more than anything. Any fright that's going on with this, if tobacco money's involved, whether CASA, not blowing smoke, whoever it is, if they're going along with it for the same end, I don't see anything wrong with it. I really don't, because tobacco's been doing a really good job of defending themselves all these years, and I think we could learn a lot from it where we're not doing anything or very, very little. They've made a lot of headway in a lot of places, but man, that's a lot of money,
Well, and I even said that because he even said in his response to something I said, I forget, he said, I said, I don't remember what I did this morning, let alone the Monday. But I do know that he said, well, here he's lying about me taking the money. I said, okay, well, if I didn't lie, I mean, you used the money for what you were doing, what your purposes was. I didn't say you used it for your own personal, wealth. I said, and I don't know if you take a salary. I don't know if you were living on your own money. I have no idea. But what I said was you don't take money, okay, and then fail at getting the job done for whatever reason. Okay. And that's where Greg Conley got involved, because Greg gets along really well with them out there. And he's been very active in the state of California, because we all know how important it is legislatively that what happens in California, waves across the East Coast after a short period of time, because what happens there generally happens throughout the rest of the country. So, Greg's very active in there. And I know Greg has been to the meetings with RJ Reynolds. I know it for a fact. I know that, Stefan was at these meetings, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. That's I wish people would just stop freaking worrying about the fact that I'm saying, no, if you're going to take money from RJ Reynolds and they're going to do it for the same reasons that we are, and I'm all for it. And that's why he even said, Dave's accusing me of taking money. No, you used the money they gave you. Okay. Not for your personal use. But then you said that, well, now the tobacco industry isn't the big bad wolf anymore. I said, well, no, because they're trying to undo the damage that they've done. And I said that with Philip Morris International. I even said it with Von Earl when they sold out and threw me under the bus and it became My Blue. I don't care if people quit smoking combustible tobacco. I don't care if they're using the IQOS. I don't care if they're doing any heat not burn. I don't care if it's a Views, Mark 10. I don't care if I told everybody that, and I've never deviated from that. But what I've said was it's going to make me suspicious personally because of my relationships with RJ Reynolds for all those years and all the shit that's been going on with the big tobacco companies from the day that they started lying when they said nicotine wasn't addictive. And now they're trying to find ways to buy everything up so they have a monopoly on the vaping market by the end of 2020. So all closed system. So everybody is now talking about it, but I say it, and then all of a sudden, I'm the bad guy. I've been saying we need a national PR plan. We need to spend money in public relations, and nobody listens to me. And then all of a sudden today, everybody's saying we need a PR plan. Well, no shit, Sherlock. And I'm not the smartest, sharpest tool in the shed, but I do know how the tobacco companies work, and that's what makes me a little hesitant when anybody takes any money and then they deny it. I mean, and I know that the proof is there, and I know that they took it for whatever reason to help a cause. I never said the cause wasn't justified. I just said, if you take the money and you fail at, helping the cause come to fruition to where it's beneficial, don't blame people like my friend Deanna and Ron Marshall in Montana at Smoke Free Association, who will not take a dime of tobacco money, and they're getting better wins without tobacco money. That's the point I'm trying to make and have been trying to make and always have. So I'm putting it out there with full disclosure that that's what I've always meant. That's what I've always said. And I've never deviated from that. So depending upon, what that Stefan wants to do, if he wants to shake hands and tell me to go F myself and tell me to go shit in my hat, he's leaving. He's going to go out of business. He's going to do something else. He's taking a job with somebody else. Fine. But I'm not going to let somebody call me a liar and just walk away with that without giving some sort of response to it, because it just makes you look guilty. And I'm not going to stand for that. So, I mean, do you guys have any questions of me on this? Because I've never even addressed it with you guys. We haven't talked about it. I mean, I've kept quiet because I've wanted to think it through. All I know is,
as a consumer, when I saw Not Blowing Smoke, I'd really just been in the very beginning of my little world and journey. And I thought, now that's something I can stand behind, because they were very aggressive and they're mouthy. It was a in your face kind of thing, and nothing against CASA, but
that's what I've always stood for too, Kevin.
It seemed in my own world, CASA was kind of passive, and Not Blowing Smoke was just in your face. And I was like, oh, not that I'm against CASA. I love CASA, believe me, but it was something fresh and new. And that was something to me that helped motivate me and a lot of other people, just in general. So I don't try to get into the drama of silly all the time. I just kind of observe, but I heard what you said.
Well, when you're working side by side with somebody, okay, like me, and you've known me as long as you have, and you and I haven't really discussed it, I don't want you to think for a second that this is just going to be sloughed off as being unimportant, and he starts telling people like they're not really relevant. And I have documents, and I have conversations with people that he says some pretty horrible bullying things to people. And I've heard it. I've seen it. It's been tested and it's been verified. I just don't like bullies either. And I put bullies up there with any kind of age group. I don't care if you're 7 and you're in a playground and you're a bully, I hope you get yours, and I don't mean anything horrible, but I hope the paybacks are kind of consequential and that you learn from it, and we got so much distractions in this world that, anything negative you say, gets taken out of context. I heard something today that really blew my mind. I think Hollywood, I'm not a big fan of anymore because of their left wing and how liberal they are. And you got people like, I think Keira Knightley, who won't let her kids watch Disney movies anymore because Cinderella is one that should not have to go after a prince to have a life. And then I think it was Kristen Bell who said that she won't watch Sleeping Beauty or Snow White because Snow White was sleeping and the prince kissed her without permission, and she wasn't able to give consent. This is what we see every minute of every hour of every day. And how do you talk to your boys about what happened if they go on a date? You have to have full body cams on you to make sure. So, and you have sons, Kevin. We just. With what's happening now, I'm just so over the top, and I'm so filled with anger that we've gotten to this point, and they're doing the same thing. And it started with me, with the vaping industry. I saw how they just totally decided to use the smoker and the vapor as expendable commodities for their political theater. And if people don't like it, if people don't want me to do it the way I want to do it, then I'll just leave and I'll just go about my business, and as I said from the very beginning.
Really?
Or they can, exactly. If you don't like gays, don't be gay. If you don't like abortions, don't have an abortion. If you don't want, same-sex marriage, don't marry the same sex. If you don't like dogs, don't get a dog. I mean, what is wrong with us to where we have to be so angry all the time? And I don't want to be angry. And I told that to somebody yesterday. I said, I'm just so tired of being angry now, and I'm going to get back in my podcast. I'm going to get back and doing things positive, which brings us to the note tonight that I'm working in other parts of the country where I'm seeing similar things, part of the globe. What's happening in Australia is not improving. As far as I know there's things happening, but you take 3 steps forward, you get knocked back 5 and 6. Right now, vaping is still a horrible thing over there in Australia. We know what's going on with a couple people, and there's a lot of prescriptions that are being written now for nicotine, and we're starting to see the I don't want to say corruption. Paul, would that be a good word, or is that a bad word?
That could be used, but we're still waiting for the study that the government have been putting together now. We're waiting for that to happen and see what their findings are. Oh, no one.
When they expect that, 2050?
No one seems to
2050?
know.
They need
Our
35
health
more
minister,
years to study.
He's just running around like a chicken with his head cut off, and he won't give anyone answers. You write a letter to him, and you don't get a response, or you get a blank email from him with very few, points or little tiny bits of information. But yeah, corruption. It is definitely happening here. You see, no.
Well, you certainly don't have what we have going over here with Trump and everything, and the Antifa and the Democrats. You don't have that over there. You have your own skirmishes with 26 million people, but we're just unhinged over here. We're just out of control. And I think I understand, Kevin and Steve and Paul, why people don't give a shit. And you remember I said in the movie, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Well, because nobody cares because nobody has time to care unless you have lung cancer, heart disease, or emphysema, and you're on oxygen, and then the family has to take care of you by wheeling you to the toilet. Then they care. And those are don't take me out of context and don't say that nobody cares. Well, of course, some people care. We just don't have enough people caring. And that's what this podcast was supposed to be about. And that's what it's going to continue to be about. And that is if people listen and they want to comment and they want questions answered, they got to write in. Otherwise, consumers, exactly. And somebody who has a mother who smokes. I had a woman come to me yesterday, a young lady. She's in the neighborhood. She had a double mastectomy. She's 31 years old because she had cancer, and it was in her family. But she's a smoker, so I got her a device and I gave her some liquids. And I didn't give her my liquids because she liked the fruity flavors, so I got her something that from one of the shows because I know a guy. I know people who have flavors, and Paul does wonderful things with flavors over in Australia, and we want to get a David G down under line over there going once we get all the legal things taken care of, and we know we can do it. But apparently some people have found loopholes in there because we've got U.S. manufacturers in Australia manufacturing now and coming up with deals that are making things happen over there in Australia. And it seems like it's got the sanctions by the government, but it's not opening up to the public yet. It's very selective. And I think that's where Paul gets his anger from. And he and I talk quite a bit. And I haven't talked to him much this week because of my own, personal anger that I have with people. And again, I don't want to rile anybody up. I'm not trying to rile you guys up. I'm just trying to give you some backstory here as to why things happen with me because of who I am and what I've done. And if I can be of help to Paul in Australia and we can, be transparent and get information out with a documentary over there showing what's happening to citizens of Australia who have the same rights that we have here, and somebody's taking them away because their reasons are not forthright and honest and true, and they become fraudulent and corrupt, then we have to talk about it as well. So we can't be afraid of pissing anybody off if we have our proof. And I have proof for everything I've said, and I have proof and common sense for everything I want to say. But I also admit that sometimes I go off half-cocked and I get upset and I get a little pissy. But I'm okay with that because I don't think there's anything wrong with a good dose of anger therapy if it's pointed in the right direction. And right now the FDA is pointing their anger at this exit ramp that so many adults have available to them, and they're taking it away, and it's just making me more and more angry. So vaping news is important. Subscribe to Kevin's Vaping News, listen to the podcast here, ask questions. You want to be on the show? I got several guests coming on our show. People have requested, Steve, that we go live with some video sometimes so they can see it. Is that doable?
Yeah, I got some ideas.
Okay. But we need to do it. We need to get my little mini documentary started, which we're really close now. We're just doing the scripting now. And like I said, my writer, Kevin, will be in touch with you so you can guide him through the maze of what I'm looking for, because you know me better than anybody. Steve, you're going to be my go-to guy here to make sure that we get the shots necessary to make it a good video, being fair and honest and with reasonably regulated products that are following all of the FDA rules and regulations for branding and for imaging. And, we're going to dot our I's and cross our T's and do it right. And we'll do all that. We'll still have haters. We'll still have people saying that we should be doing other things. But I want this podcast out over the weekend if we can possibly do it. And then if you're going traveling, I'll be traveling next week to Denver to the NVE, and I'll make this announcement now that the NVE may be my last advocacy program that I do. I will go to these shows with Pinnacle, with my CBD line. I will go with VapesGoneWild, which is my e-liquid line. But the advocacy thing is just getting too dramatic for me. Too much hate, too much anger, too much negativity. I don't see it as being beneficial anymore. So I've already told people that this may be my last advocacy panel show that I do. Tour, yeah. So I'll just go as a manufacturer and the face for the flavors and the lines that I have. And by then, things should be cooking really good with the documentary. Things should be cooking really good with the ebook that we'll be able to get in schools. I do have meetings with a couple people who are also doing the very similar things for the FDA's strategy and planning sessions. So things are happening, and I've got people standing by waiting for me, but I wanted to get this podcast in the can tonight so people can hear where I come from, because they're going to hear me later tonight. They're going to hear me Friday night. They heard me on Vape Radio. So look forward to answering any questions people have of me as things unfold. I haven't heard from Stefan in the last 3.5 days. So maybe I will, maybe I won't. But if he wants to ask me questions or come on air with me and discuss it, we can. And I'll be more than happy to explain how and why I feel the way I do. And he can do the same thing if he wants to. And if not, we'll have to let the chips fall where they may, guys. All right. So what's coming up next week, Kevin?
Earlier tonight, the FDA's user fees for cigars and all that, cigarettes, they're funding the Children's Health Insurance Program partially with that money. And they don't have at the moment, but they're going to, I'm sure, they're going to review and renew it by Congress for 2019 for the e-cigarettes and vapor products, which is something we talked about a few weeks ago. No tax, period. Other than normal sales tax, I am against anybody for any reason saying, well, let's take 40% of wholesale, just like Chris Hughes did in Pennsylvania. It's idiotic and retarded. There's 20 ways to go.
Well, I was talking to a lady out in Oregon who runs out there, and they've got a lot of stores in Oregon, and they're just signing on with the VTA. They have their own Oregon Smoke-Free Association, but they don't have any money. They got all these stores, but they only got 4 stores that pay in every month, and you can't live on 4 stores monthly dues. The lobbyists were pretty crappy up there, I was told, and didn't do anything. And unfortunately, that's a story that repeats itself in other states too, where the lobbyists just take their money, and now the VTA is going to come in, and that's what we, Yeah, but what VTA is going to try to do, and I believe that the VTA, is with Tony and with Jake Butcher and with Amy and the other people there, we need one umbrella source. We need one place where everybody can go. So now, from what I'm told, the VTA is getting a lot more states to sign in with them, because they will help to pay the lobbyist fees. If it's $60,000 depending upon how much their net worth is as far as their monthly donations from the stores, the brick and mortars, then they'll pay $35,000 to a $60,000 bill, and the other ones have to come up with
They're sharing the
$25,000. I think it
cost
works
is
something
what-
like that.
Okay,
Again,
okay.
don't hold me to that.
Right.
Sharing the cost, but they have to sign everything over to them. And that's the other thing. And
Beats the
now,
alternative.
is that good or bad? I don't know. I'm not in it. Beats the alternative, right? So at some point, it's time to fish or cut bait. Sometimes you look at these things and it doesn't look. It's like roadkill. Sometimes you just have to look. It's pretty gross. But at the end result, the bottom line is it beats the alternative. Of not knowing what's going on. We're aware of it. If we're aware of it, we can be a little bit more defensive. We can be a little bit more pragmatic. We can be a little bit more conscious of transparency. Where's it going to go? What's going to happen? So we can learn from our mistakes. And VTA, Tony is a good guy, and there's a lot of people that don't like the VTA. There's a lot of people that don't like CASA. They don't like SFATA. They don't like, people, are jumping ship all the time, but you have to have the knowledge of the fact, why are they jumping? Why are they jumping? Well, because they're not happy. They're not getting the job done, because every time they try to do something, they get knocked back. And it's no different than what we're trying to do, guys. With my podcast, every time I try to do something, then somebody's going to call me a liar. That's just going to mean it's going to take more of my energy away to defend myself than it is to go out and do something positive, like a documentary, like an ebook, like a manual, a study guide for teachers, and, to do what I wanted to do and get smokers to quit when they're ready. So, as these things happen every day, I mean, we will never run out of things to talk about. But what I'd like you to do, guys, is understand that when I come from a point of view, it's based on a lot of thought. I may not say it the right way, and again, the VTA is, if they're going to be an umbrella organization with the 50 state strategy, and that is to go fight for these 50 states and help them, that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But if people are doing it unwillingly because it's the only choice we have and they're not really happy about it, how passionate and how productive and how positive are they going to be? Because we need a positive unit here. We need people working together. And I think that's what we need to work for in a PR type of a situation where we need good public relations as well. So I don't have the answers. Kevin, if you have the answers, bring them on. Steve, if you have the answers, bring them up. Paul, I don't know what to tell you until I get over there. Until I get in there with my camera and we get to talk to some of your people, which is what we're working on, as you know. And I got people that want to come with us, and it's going to be you and me, buddy, over in Australia until we get a handle on what's happening there. And we get
no problems
real
at
sense
all.
of
There's
how they're trying
quite
to
a
screw
number
you
of
guys
vape
over
shop
over
owners
there,
here
and the
that
women.
want to talk to
All right?
you. There's one of our
Okay.
reviewers here in Australia, Sam, the vaping bogan.
Uh-huh.
He wants to talk to you one-on-one. He's also a very big advocate. So no,
Mhm.
it's time. It's time that you get your ass down here.
Okay. Okay. I thought it was
Yeah.
I thought we were
I don't
above
know.
you, or
No.
you were above us.
Are you guys below?
I don't know where the hell
No,
you
they're
are.
definitely lower.
But I'll get there. Okay. And if you guys just have your patience with me, and if you hear any scuttlebutt and you want to bring it to my attention of what's going on, because I know, Kevin, you're on the computer quite a bit. I'm not as much anymore because I got things going on, but my health is better. I feel good. And I would like this whole not blowing smoke thing to just, go away, because I need to concentrate on the things that I want to do better. And I hopefully will be able to move forward, and this too shall pass. And look forward to talking to you next week, because we do have a situation where we got to do this once a week somehow from now on. If we have to do it at 3 a.m, or we have to do it at 10 a.m., whenever you guys can find the time, I will be at your beck and call, and doesn't have to be at mine. Okay. So Steve, whenever you can do it and it's good for
We'll make
you,
it
and
happen.
Kevin, I know you're, and right tomorrow night, if things go well, I'll win the $900 million in the lottery. And if I win the $900 million, I will buy you a new head of hair, Kevin. We'll buy you a little curly red wig.
Mine's just
What are you
shaved.
laughing at, Paul? You
I've got a
bald
shaved
man.
head too.
Baldy. Yeah. I know, but you guys, I love you all. I think you guys are awesome to stick by me on this. And Paul, thanks for your patience this last week or two. I'm trying to get things done and wrapped up as quickly as I can. So if I'm not as available, there's a reason why. Just know that we're going to do this next week, once a week from here on out. And Steve, work on what we can do to go video wise. I don't know how you do that, but you can do it. You can work your magic. And for everybody listening, thanks for your support and thanks for, listening into us. And if you have any questions, concerns, know that we are sponsored by Pinnacle CBD out of Carthage, Missouri. My vape family, the Lacey's, Kevin, Jessica, and the kids, and AJ and Daniel and all the other people out there. And of course, my guys down in Georgia, which is Vapes Gone Wild, Trent, who just got engaged. Congratulations, Trent. And Victor, Vicious VIC, we call him, Victor VIC. I'll be with them in Denver this coming week for the show. So thanks for listening. We'll be in touch soon. Stay in touch with us. And remember, DavidGModelCitizen.com podcast is available for you 24/7, either here on Vape Radio or it can be downloaded on iTunes or wherever you want to find us. You should be able to get us with no problem. Right, Steve?
Correct.
Okay. Guys, thanks very much. Have a good evening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.